Good afternoon. I am Veera Raghava, and the topic that I am discussing for the next 15 minutes is about predictive health, which is all about analytics. After a brilliant session given by none other than our Sangeeta Reddy, it's very difficult to justify on top of that, but I'll try my justice in terms of, try to do the justice in terms of getting into more specifics of what we are seeing in predictive analytics in healthcare, and towards the end of the session, we'll get back to what we believe we can do in India. So you'll probably get a view of both. I'll start setting a context, and apologize if I am talking about the word death on the other side. I borrowed this couple of slides from our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Nick. He presented this 2 weeks ago. And this explains why it's different and why this topic and why is it important and why it's not just about copying what others have done, why it's going to be an integral part of what we do, whether other established, developed nations have done it or not. The green line out there is pretty simple, right? It talks about from the birth with a little up and down of your condition of health. At some point, like a mission or like any other product, things fail and then it comes down to an end. And this is the human cycle that we know of. In reality, this is changing depending on individuals' lifestyle, at least today. It is genomics as we understand, it is environment, it is heredity, it is all those combinations which makes it very unique and difficult to scientifically prove, but we have curves like that and that and that, right? And those are mechanisms in which we are seeing today. So essentially, this could be a curve for what we see today for a human being, which is not a good thing, but that's how we see this today. If you look at that big portion up there, is what you could have a healthy lifestyle if you could pull the curve all the way up. That's on scientific terms. If you are a product company manufacturing products like God, you would want to make sure that whatever you produce is hale and healthy till your expiry date, right? And unfortunately, we are scientists here, engineers here. Somebody commented about in this room there are a lot more engineers than trained physicians, and this is the change that's happening. We would like to look at it from that angle. That's the fun part of living, and that's the non-fun part when you are sick and you need treatment. And most of what we do today, all healthcare we talk about, is on the non-fun zone. That's where the hospitalization happens and all the discussions that we had today, be it cutting it costs, be it more being humane, be it telemedicine, be it other technologies, it's all around that. The point is that there is a lot more to human beings that you could play around, and therefore healthcare in tomorrow's world, if you have to be an important player, if hospitals have to be important player, have to play with birth to grave of an individual, which means you don't wait for somebody to get sick, you got to start early. So I would like to, in future, talking about the baby who's crying when he's not having a phone, would like to pay for healthcare to a brand who's taking care of the holistic health of the individual rather than waiting for me to fail and then you would do the best job of what you could do to repair. That being the context, I'll come back and say how analytics is going to take over. And before that, we'll take a few examples. Obviously, these examples, are taken from the US, which is where we have the biggest case studies and live case studies. Some of them we are directly working on. I'll sift through some of this in the interest of time. None of these numbers are different for you. It'll all be presented in different form. But these are cases that we have seen in specific examples of certain customers. I'll leave that for you to look at. There is also a scenario where it reaches end customers when it comes to big data scenario. I'm moving into a relevant next slide, which talks about what we do in this case. You're talking about UPMC, very known healthcare brand in the US. 37% of identified at-risk patients being identified and they run a Dell technology today, which is predictive analytics as a use case to bring this down. So they are able to identify who are the high-risk patients who are currently in the hospital today and may require additional focused treatment attention, and if not, they will end up coming back to the hospital for the same issue. And this is not only about their brand, it is not only about saving costs because the insurance companies don't pay for those readmissions, so it is money involved, but it is also patient and doing it right the first time. This is another case for emergency scenario. This is about data collection. We had some examples of this before. Data being collected when the person comes into the emergency room and taking a call on whether the person has to stay overnight and wait for the cardiologist to check up in the morning, or data point based on historic information says that you are safe to go home today and you don't need to be head overnight there, or you have to do it because of what the data says behind us. And this is also another pilot that is we are working on. This is an actual case of surgical site infection being reduced because of predictive analytics. As the surgery goes on, a monitor is put on the surgical platform on the top, and at this point they are not hooked up to actual machines, but there's a nurse keying in vitals, and based on the individual's EMR record, which is obviously pulled in before the surgery, and based on certain parameters that they record at the time of surgery, there is a prediction made on the likelihood of a wound becoming septic, or it could be a normal scenario, and based on that, decision is made whether the patient after the surgery is moved into an ICU, or it's moved into a bed, or it's been asked to release after due advice in terms of what the post-operative care should be. And so these are all can be seen as better patient care, but it's also seen as optimization of healthcare cost, and which is what these brands are obviously looking at. In the interest of time, I'm not getting into the asthma case, but you know what I'm talking about here. So when you look back at the paradigm of how the analytics comes into picture, it has to start with the patient record. You got to capture and digitize, and we had scenarios before. Should that be an EHR? How difficult it is for a doctor to come back and digitize it? Whatever way, in whatever shape we do, it has to start with data being digitized, without which you don't have analytics in place. Human mind can capture only so much, and therefore it has to start with digitization. Digitization starts with individual silos, and therefore we have, in the health system, we have multiple organizations involved in a patient's care. It could be a lab, it could be a radiology, it could be the pharmacy, obviously is the hospital. So data needs to be interoperable and apply analytics, which then goes towards all the good things that we're talking about, personalized medicine, predictive modeling, and demography and therefore into population health. These are many of the individual solutions that today, if you go back to our portfolio of what we offer, and each of them can be classified as what they belong, but they all fall into the analytics umbrella, right? Whether you talk about drug discovery and clinical trials more towards the medicine or medical device area, or you're looking at the patient side, which is actually very relevant to India, patient satisfaction, consumer segmentation, marketing and promotion, which is very much relevant to India. Those are all analytics all the way back into some of the readmissions and population analytics that I talked to you earlier about. And the data comes from unstructured data, multiple sources, which is what makes this more difficult and not a straightforward database and reports. So just a 101 course of what we should be looking at if you are in an analytics journey. It's a simple hindsight view. Start with that. It's basic reporting, moving into insights, which is getting into visualization and inferences. So you start getting into making knowledge or information out of your data, and that's what insight gets. And then into predictive modeling and predictive analysis, where you are taking decisions or the machine is taking decisions for you or helping you take decisions. And those are the foresight scenarios. So obviously, this is evolution of how you go, and I'll definitely be happy to provide more details once we have on a Q&A scenario. Switching into India, 70% of what we do in healthcare is done by private industry. So this is data taken from Bain, but I don't need to have any more validation. I know all of you are aware of this. And so that is unique in India in terms of how healthcare is delivered. Of the 70%, if you could see these graphs, about 20% or less actually are delivered through branded, certified hospital segments, recognized by NABH or JCL and those kind of scenarios. So, which means a good 80% of the private healthcare is delivered through unorganized, not so structured segments. So the question in India lies not about all the advancement of what we could do by larger groups like Apollos and Fortis. It's about what the 80% would do. And it's critical if you want to get data from there and how are they going to be digitized. Why would they do it? Because they're all obviously there, barring a few, they're all there for a profit. And on top of it, this is also unique in the sense that India is the only unique country where the out-of-pocket expense is to the hilt, while this is hopefully going to go down with government intervention and public schemes or insurance schemes. The opportunity, as I see here, optimizing your protocols, working with your pharma and medical device partners, building innovation in India so that you could bring specialized Indian contextual protocols rather than just borrowing from international scenarios. And medicine is still data driven. This is how you could actually make that happen. Of course, the last read, I don't want to depend the whole thing on a government entity or a Ministry of Health coming in. Obviously, regulating through data, setting standards makes it all easier, makes analytics a lot easier. But then one could actually not wait for that to happen, go through steps 1 to 3. You could achieve a lot going through this. The question that when I presented, not exactly this topic, but a similar topic around 2 weeks ago, there were a lot of questions around the topic that I talked about last slide. In India, 80% of the segment is unorganized. They have a smaller revenue. They can't run projects, especially analytics projects. They don't even see the value of digitizing. How are you going to, what is your solution? I welcome you back to the booth that we have set up there to talk about an India-specific solution that we have put together. It's pretty simple. It is primarily made in India, but built with global concepts. It is an entire IT system provided in a box, basically, on a cloud with a building block of a basic HIS, an ERP for your financial and inventory transaction, a EMR for people who are ready to move up to the next level, obviously as a business intelligence layer on top. Put all this in a box, available on a SaaS model for hospital chains, for mid-level hospitals who want to rip off what they have and build something which is affordable for them. This is pre-built, pre-integrated. Dell Boomi is the latest and greatest cloud-based integration engine available in the world today, and that's what integrates them. Integration is very critical, and it's pre-built for people. Of course, we have add-on scenarios, who want to explore into more IT, CRM, BPM, getting into PRM solutions, and telemedicine are all integrated as part of this for people who want to venture beyond that. And then, obviously, top it off via Dell. We can provide all the tablets and desktops and anything else that you need to get the compute going. That is a solution that is out there. Welcome people to visit our booth and see what we can do for even a mid-sized hospital, which cannot talk about many of what we are talking in terms of analytics. With that, I'll leave back for questions if you have any. Thank you very much.